back. I am super excited to bring our last guests to the front. I am super excited. Miss Angela Marcano and her husband, not her husband, her son, Conrad. I reached out to her because I saw her on Facebook. We've been Facebook friends for a long time. I noticed her. She first caught my attention because she travels a lot. She's always all over the world, and I love it. Y'all know that I have a travel business, so that always catches my attention. But just seeing the relationship between her and her son, who is grown, and I'm like, wow, this is something people need to see and learn from and experience. Now, what I didn't know until now is that she was an educator too. Educator, retired elementary school teacher, district administrator. She's an author. She and her husband have been married 42 years, and they have one child, her son, who is an airline pilot, and they have an amazing relationship. I'm super excited to bring Angela and Conrad to the front. Welcome to the Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast.
All right.
Thank you. Hi, Kalisha. Good afternoon. So nice to finally talk to you in person. We have been Facebook friends for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell the folks a little bit about you and I don't know, a little bit about your story.
Okay. Well, I was an only child, and my son is an only child. I got used to just being by myself, and I don't know, when we got married, we just thought, well, also careers and everything. We just thought that one child was enough. And when we had him, I'm just going to start out and be honest, he was a handful. I found out later on all boys are, they're kind of hyper and when they're young and run around and do things. I was a teacher for like 6 years, and then I started getting administrative positions that required more and more time. And Conrad was in daycare for a while, but then my mom came to live with us, so she was doing a lot of babysitting. So he spent time with my mom, and then his dad is from Trinidad. And when she would come and visit, which was often, she would take care of him. He had two cultures, actually several cultures that he was raised with, and grandparents, extended family. My dad is from Cuba, and he came over before Castro years ago, and he met my mom. They were both working in Harlem Hospital. My dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse. So me growing up, it wasn't if I was going to college, it was where. From, a very young age, education was always stressed. I wouldn't say they were very, very strict, but they taught me right from wrong. We did go to church. Religion wasn't forced down my throat because both of them grew up Catholic. And they didn't like the way the nuns were very strict with them. So they didn't send me to a Catholic school, but grades K through 8, I was in a private school, and I begged them, please, for high school, I don't want to go to a private school. They sent me actually to a Seventh-day Adventist school. That was the private school. And it was very strict. But I learned a lot about the Bible, which was great. And that's lasted throughout my life. It was not Seventh-day Adventist. We just happened. Okay. Well, we lived in Compton. We were actually the first Black family on our block in Compton. Compton was all white when we moved in. This is like 1962. This was a long time ago. And as the neighborhood started to change and everything, they wanted to put me in private school, so I went to the Seventh-day Adventist school. And then we moved to Orange County later on, and I was one of 3 Black students in my class. There were 800 in my graduating class, 3,000 on campus. I think total there were maybe 6. Wow. So but this was 1977. I was class of 77, Los Alamitos High School. And it was a different time. It really was. Now that I look back, I would say I was a token. Back then, I just felt like, oh, well, I have so many friends and everybody likes me. Everybody knew me, of course. How could they not? And I was very active. I was in just about every club on campus and the drill team and all that. So when Conrad came along, oh, and my mom always had me in activities. So there was no time to mess up. I had to have piano lessons, and on weekends I went to dance class. There was always something. In summer there were activities, and I kind of raised Conrad the same way when he came along. So I'm going to let him tell you about his experience growing up, and then we'll get into the questions that you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I thank you for your time and having me invited me to come to just today for your podcast. Yeah. So I was born 1985. Only child. 40. Had a big 40 last year. And yeah, growing up with no siblings presented its there's definitely benefits. There's definitely a lot of challenges as well. One of the benefits being, well, shoot, you're the center of attention. That can also be a challenge. And then not getting experience from your siblings or older siblings through just social interactions and how to do like social things. Kind of like my entire life, I pretty much was on my own. How to figure it out. I had later in my life, I did have mentors. A lot of them in my fraternity later, but well, my early years, I did not have, other than my parents, a lot of adult figures or people like close in age that I kind of had something to learn from, or like a older brother kind of experience. I didn't have that, so everything I did literally was on my own. I messed up, as far as like relationships and everything was just like I didn't know. So it's like I was that kind of guy. But yeah, one thing, my dad worked for American. He's been working for American for 30 plus years. I got into aviation through him, just being associated, traveling a lot, meeting other pilots, being invited to the flight deck when I was like 5, and that stuck with me. So that was a passion I always had, and I worked hard to make it become a reality. There was times it wasn't that easy, and then even when I was an undergrad in college, I was like, okay, do I really want to go this way, or do I go to law school? Do I go to grad school, et cetera, et cetera? So I put a lot of sacrifice, and I'm a captain for American Airlines on an Airbus 321 fleet, and it's an honor. It's definitely, I thank God Almighty, but it's an honor in the sense of humility, because the leadership role, the professionalism, the performance, that's kind of one of our things that we put in as captains, and being able to have that responsibility, definitely it comes with a price. And I have the passengers' lives are in my hands, as what, and as far as keeping the tone with my crew members. So that's one thing that I prepare for every trip. I go through all my manuals, go through my take my like a whole systems test and everything. I don't have to do that. Most guys don't do that. They usually study like that when they're going to a recurrent. Recurrent is like every year we have to go to training, recurrency training. I do that every week. That's just me. I hold myself to a high level
And
because
where'd you learn that?
and
Grandpa.
my mother always was about
No, it
excellence.
wasn't me. Well,
Oh
yes,
yes, my grandfather
grandpa.
grandfather was a doctor, so he was all about excellence. So that has transferred to me as in my role now as an adult. So that's a little bit about my upbringing and a little introduction. So
Yeah, I love that. And what you're showing me is that there's multiple layers of support there, multiple layers of excellence that led to you becoming who you are.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Um, so I remember you saying, Angela, when we were talking about this, you were saying you were the disciplinarian. How did you and your husband decide that you would take on that role?
Well, my husband being from Trinidad, I don't know if you've heard, but they have or the men. I was always told when I got married, oh, they have a temper, and they do. They might blow up, but then they're done. You know. So if Conrad would do something when he was young, my husband might have taken it to the extreme. You want to tell maybe one story? I remember once what did you do? Something with your stuffed animal or something, and he just took it and threw it. You,
Oh well, I
your
mean,
beloved stuffed
I
animal.
I had I don't know what I did, but when I was young, I used to be really rough with my toys. So like my parents would buy me these really nice collectible either stuffed animals or collectible models, and I would play as a boy would play. I'll be really rough and I'll break it. And my dad had this particular stuff. There was like a Disney character, I can't remember, but he had to repair it several times. He just got one day like when I came to him or he saw like it was broken, like the nose is coming off the face or whatever. He just took it and chugged it like a football, like Peyton Manning, and threw it across. We were living at another apartment at the time, and he threw it across, and it went to like there was a U-Haul storage, like a U-Haul storage facility, and it went like I mean, he threw it like
on the roof.
He threw a 60-yard pass, and it went on the roof of the other building. So and it stayed there. It stayed there for years. Yeah.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Chippendale. It was a Chippendale toy.
It was Chippendale, yeah. And yeah, anyway. So yeah, because you would take his nose, the nose was hard, you would bang it on windows.
I was just rough. I was just a boy playing, you know.
And he told you several times. Yeah. So anyway, because of his temper, he said, you handle it. You just whatever he does. So my background was in psychology. That's what I got my degree in. And I just didn't believe in spanking. My mom, being old school, she was from Buffalo, New York. I think her grandmother was involved. Her grandmother was from Richmond, Virginia. But anyway, she was old school. So she did spank me when I was young, but I wouldn't say it was a beating. It was if I did something wrong, it was usually talking back, disrespecting, things like that. And she had what was called a red belt. It was a red belt and it was leather. And if I did something, she would just hit me on the legs. It was immediate, and then it was over. And like I'd be crying and like, oh, why did you do that? She said, I'm finished. I'm done with that. And you could tell she still loved you, but she had to teach you a lesson at that moment. Well, I didn't even want to do that. I think I might have tried that maybe when he was very young, 2 or 3, because I had read studies show that when it's not effective, that spanking isn't effective. Maybe when they are 2 or 3 and don't understand, you can't reason with them. A little hit, a slap on the leg, on the hand, that's basically all I did. So once he understood consequences, I was all about consequences. You understand, Conrad, if you do this, this is going to happen. You're going to lose a toy, lose a privilege. And then I also had a lot of positive reinforcement. He would get a toy at the end of the week. He could go pick out something in the store. I even had a calendar at one point, and I would put little dots on it. If he had a good day and got all 5 dots, he got something at the end of the week. We belonged to Disneyland. They had the annual pass. They weren't expensive back then. They really are now. And I would take him to Disneyland because we live 15 minutes away, in Orange County. So I'd pick him up on Friday after school, and we'd go to Disneyland, ride a few rides, and go home. It wasn't a long, big thing, but and maybe he even got a toy on the way out. So that's how I reinforced positive behavior. And I remember once when you were 7, I don't know what he had done, but he had done something, maybe a bad report from school, who didn't stay in his seat. He had a lot of teachers that really weren't very tolerant. And I would get these reports, that he had a bad day. And I said, well, what was a bad day? Well, he wouldn't stay in his seat. Well, maybe he was a tactical learner. He didn't learn that way. Maybe he needed to get up and move around and learn with hands-on and not be given a lecture at 7 years old. Right. So, but that's another story. So yeah, it was probably a bad report or something. And I don't remember, it must have been really bad because I got in the car and drove all the way to Skid Row. And the Skid Row back then was one street or maybe 2. It wasn't like it is today. Right. Yeah. So I wanted to show him what would happen if he continued in this path, that behavior. If I said, this is what's going to happen. If you don't follow the rules, you don't listen to your teacher, you don't graduate from school, this is where you're going to end up. And when you saw that, how did that, because you remember that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I remember just seeing people living out of a tent and living on the street. And that was certainly, like it was definitely a warning. It was educational, put it that way. So
I think it was a cold night too, so there were fires
yeah,
and trash
right,
cans, and
right.
yeah, it was a pretty, and that was shocking. Some people might not agree. Well, maybe I scared him or whatever, and some people might not agree with the buying of the toys. I've heard, well, that's bribing them, and that doesn't work. But it worked for him. It worked for us. You have to find a way that works for you and your child. But I definitely don't believe in beating. It seems like, and I'm just learning today, a lot of my friends were beaten for nothing. I mean, one man told me that his dad would just come home from work and he'd get a beating every night for nothing. He didn't even know what he had done.
Wow.
And Christmas Day, this was really shocking. We went over a friend's house and she told me that her ex-husband would wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning every night because when he grew up, his father would wake him up at 2 a.m. every night and beat him. And he had to take his clothes off. And I couldn't believe that. And she looked at me like I was crazy. She said, Angela, that's how it was. That's old school. I said, oh, I'm glad that I wasn't raised like that. And I know a lot of women that were also beaten for nothing. I think the parents were either taking out their anger and frustration living in racist America
Yeah.
on their kids, or they didn't want. I remember one woman told me, if you don't beat him, the police will.
People say
I,
that all the
Right, right.
time.
they do. I think we were on a plane,
Yeah,
and then I had some family members that said, "Just give me 1 week with him. Like if we went to a party or something, he acted up. Just get." And I wasn't going to send my child to this person for 1 week because I knew what he was going to do, and I didn't want to break that beautiful childhood spirit. He's got a sense of humor. He's creative, and I feel that when you beat them, you're beating all that out of them, and
100%.
they don't have a mind of their own.
right,
Yeah.
right. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. And it's so good that you had that mindset, but also because you had that psychology background,
That's
so you had the data, like Shavana, who was just on, you had the data plus the emotion, right? You had the logic and the emotion at the same time that allowed you to really be balanced in how you viewed your child. And boys are busy. My
yes. Very.
grandson, I know he will climb on your head. The little
Yes.
boys, the little girls are not as much like that.
Yeah.
Usually, those little boys will climb on your head and don't even care.
They were.
My 3-year-old, out if I'm sitting up on my daughter's house, I'm sitting on the couch, he'll just climb across the top of the couch and not
Mm.
even pay attention to where he's going.
Yes.
But I'm
Wow.
like, what
Yes.
are you even doing up there?
Right.
That's
Right.
just how kids are. And they're still happy kids. I'm like, don't change that in them. You
Yes.
know, you have the power as adults to either nourish that in kids or to beat it out of them. And even you see it so much more when boys are sensitive, and then they're like, oh, boys don't cry and stuff like that. And I hate that because I'm like, crying is just an emotion, just like anger is. And oftentimes
Yes.
anger is an acceptable emotion for boys, but
Hmm.
crying is not. And I'm like, why are we like that?
Why?
And we have to change the way we think and reprogram ourselves on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now
Absolutely.
you went to USC?
I did.
Yeah, I
Yes.
went to USC, class of
Right
2000.
on.
Oh wow.
All right.
Yeah, I double majored in history and political science. But
Oh.
and also my grandparents integrated the neighborhood I grew up in, right on 113th and Dinker. They were one
Mm.
of the first 3 Black families to move into that area, right by Southwest
Yes.
College in Washington. And so that's where I grew up.
Oh.
Um,
Because Black people couldn't cross Central Avenue at that
yeah,
time.
Hmm.
yeah,
So yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they had a house on over on Avalon first, and then they bought this one where I grew up. Um, but yeah, that was that time period. And you do have people who will say stuff like, one of the things I was gonna say is people will say stuff like you gotta have tough love, but most of the time it's the tough and they leave out the love. So I'm like, let's
Yes.
just let's just stop using that because you're just being tough and you're not giving that love. So when folks would
Great.
say, "Oh, let me have him for 1 week," so
Hmm.
you can do what?
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. And I'm so glad that you had the mindset to not give your son to them which would have just changed his whole spirit.
It would have.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What advice would you have for today's parents? Because parenting has changed so much, some in good ways, some in bad ways. But for those parents that want to do well and have a great relationship with their kids when they're older, when they're grown, and have a choice to either be close with their parents or not, what are some things you would tell today's parents to help build that relationship?
Well, when I told my mom I was pregnant, I remember her saying, "Your life is going to change." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "You'll see." And then her friend told me, "You're going to have to sacrifice." And I'm not sacrificing anything. And because we were traveling then, Anthony was working for American Airlines, and oh no, he wasn't, but we were still traveling then, because I had the summer and Easter and Christmas off. And I said, he's going to have to fit into my schedule. I'm sorry. I'm taking him everywhere I go. He is going to fit into our schedule. And I see a lot of parents today, and now in retrospect, did I sacrifice? I might have changed some of the ways and things that I did, but I wouldn't say it was a sacrifice because I wanted him to be involved in our life. Me not having sisters or brothers, and my husband coming from Trinidad, not really having family here all the time. It was just the three of us. So we included him in everything. And I do see some parents today not wanting to maybe take kids with them on trips. What else? They're just not that involved in their kids' lives. If they can afford it, they might have a nanny raising them. If they can't, the kid is pawned off to, different family members for babysitting. And I just feel like they should be more engaged in their child's learning in everything. Let them talk to you about whatever they want to talk about. And then I'm going to ask him to tell you, was that his experience? Because I hope so. But anyway, I remember another one of my mom's friends saying, we took him to Europe when he was, I believe, 3. Well, why are you traveling with him? What? He's not going to remember anything. You're just wasting your time and wasting your money. And I said, oh no. I said, I'm not. And what he learned at 3 was Paris is far away. They have a lot of old buildings and people speak a different language. If it was just those 3 things, I'm fine. He didn't have to learn about the French Revolution or, art of the Louvre. I mean, that could be done later. And it was. Each time we went back, there was another layer added, another layer of learning. But he had that experience, and that little piece that he learned, was good for 3 years old. And I just feel like there's always a learning experience. When I picked him up from school, we're looking at stop signs and any sign, and I'm asking him to sound out the words. And I wasn't. Well, we didn't have phones back then. I wasn't always on my cell phone. And see, that's a problem today. Parents are on the cell phone. If the child's in a restaurant or somewhere and they want them to be quiet, they hand them the cell phone. They're online. They're on some device. We didn't have that. The only thing that we had was conversation. And I think that should come back. And instead of the spankings, consequences. If you do this, this is going to happen. And it could be my consequences or consequences in life. I remember once when I was principal, his principal called me and said that they were in an assembly and he had his Sony Walkman. They were Walkmans back then. He had it with him in the 90s in an assembly. And I think he was either handing it to another kid or playing with it. And she said, you're not supposed to have that. Give it to me. And I think you gave it to her, but then you went and snatched it back.
She took it from me and I took it back. Yeah.
Principal took it in front of everybody else at an assembly, and he took it back. So she called me and said, he's suspended. You need to come get him. I had to leave my school and go pick him up. And I said, oh, but you're not going home. He thought he was going to go home and watch TV. I said, what is his name? Roosevelt, my custodian, is starting his afternoon route because I couldn't go home until 4:30. And it was, who knows, 1:30 or something. I said, you're going to go with Roosevelt and you are going to do the job that he does. You're going to be a custodian for a day to see how it feels, because if you continue in this path, that's the only job you're going to be able to get. And I felt bad because it made Roosevelt look bad,
Yeah.
and we did put gloves on him, but I think he learned something, and I'll let him tell you
Well, just
his perspective.
it was eye opening because I was now doing manual labor.
Oh, you're in middle school.
And middle school. And I never did manual labor before. I mean, other than cleaning up your room, but it was cleaning bathrooms, cleaning classrooms, after lunch, throwing away food. It was disgusting. And I'm like, yeah, this is not something that I want to do like every day. It felt like it was just a lot of work. I remember just being really tired, and because I was there for about 2-3 hours, and it's like, man, this is a lot of work. So it was definitely a what do they call it? It was that Scared Straight program. It was a show. Yeah, it was kind of like that. And I was like, okay, I'm good. Yeah.
And you had to write an apology letter to your principal, and and I don't think you ever had another discipline problem after that. No.
That is amazing. I love what you said about parents needing to be more engaged with their kids, because that is huge. That is so important. And we find time for everything that we want to do. We just have to find the time to spend with our kids in that way and take the trips and do the things. I remember my daughter is one of those who is like, they're not going to remember. I wanted to take my grandkids and go to do the Polar Express this last Christmas.
Oh.
And she was like, they're not going to remember, because she said, I know they're not going to remember because you took me to Philly when I was 10 and I don't remember that. So I know they're not going to remember this. My oldest grandson is 6. And I'm like, but we'll have the pictures and I'll remember and I'll refresh in his memory. Like, it's okay.
Yes.
But it is having those experiences. And I try to do that with my kids. And well, I did some of it with my kids. I took my kids to Mexico when my son turned 6. We just drove down for the day. I mean, my son turned 10. My daughter turned 10. I flew them to Philly, and we took some other trips in between. And I didn't have a lot of money, but I was still able to do it. If you want to do it, you'll do it. You'll find the money.
You will do it.
Find the time. Right. And sometimes it's going to the park. It may not be going out of the country, especially not right now. But it may be just going to the park or going to the beach or going somewhere else.
Yes.
Going to a local hotel. It's still an experience for the kids. If you don't have a pool at home, go to a local hotel that does have a pool.
Yes.
And be able to do those things and spend that time. But you have to want to do that. Now, had you planned ahead to have him?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. Let's see. We married in 83, September of 83. And then we had him in 85. April of 85. So yeah, definitely. It was time. But I kind of always thought I just wanted one. And I had a C-section, so the birth wasn't that pleasant. It was a surprise. It was an emergency. So I kind of didn't want to go through that again either. So it was not wanting to go through that again. Also the career, and he was a handful. I said, I want to put all of my time, effort, and energy into this one child, into making one child the best he can be, as opposed to having more and having to spread out the love. And I know other people might see that differently and are able to juggle more than one and love them all. Again, that's just what worked for us. And, and I know it's hard. We have a lot of distractions today. Like we said, the devices and technology, but also people choose to go to the club, to, just be involved in a lot of activities and put their kids with daycare and, with people every day, all day, and even on weekends, because they say, well, it's my weekend. I deserve to have fun. I've worked all week, but your child really needs you. And they've worked hard during the week as well in school. And so I don't know, maybe it's cultural. Like I said, my dad's Cuban and husband's Trini. So in the Caribbean culture, family is really important, the multi-generational family. And so you just stay together on what you go to parties together, you do things together. And yes, I don't know. Did we say we didn't talk about fraternities and sororities? But I was very active in AKA. But when I had him, I took a 10-year absence because that was the most important job that I needed to do at that time. So, there was always time to go back, and I'm back now. In fact, where's my shirt? Yeah, there it is.
I
Yeah,
love
today's
it.
MLK Day, and yeah,
Yeah.
there's a parade and a lot of things going on. So anyway,
But
that's
that's
yeah,
important. That is the sacrifice that you made. Yeah.
yeah, in retrospect, I did sacrifice, but I
Yeah.
wanted to. See, I
Yep.
always thought sacrifice was forced on you. You've got to do this,
Okay.
and it wasn't, because once you see that little baby, you fall in love and you want to take care of them and just make them the best human being. And I guess also being a teacher, I took those skills from the classroom home. So I'm always teaching him something and talking the vocabulary. And, like I said, driving down the street, there was never a moment, and I'm sure he got tired of it, and I'll let him speak, of him having to learn something. What do you think of this? Go ahead.
No. It was always, she's being a teacher. She's a natural teacher. So throughout travel or just throughout the day, even correcting me on how I speak or write or pointing something out was always like it was always a curriculum growing up. So that was you
Yeah,
can't
but
help
that
it.
sounds bad.
Yeah. No, yeah, I'm
Were
not
there
complaining.
fun? What were
Oh, absolutely.
the lessons fun? I always made them hands-on. Yeah. Well, I mean, with thank the Lord that Anthony worked for American Airlines. So when he had papers to write, we would go to that place and we would get the information. I remember the gold rush. We went up to Sacramento. He actually panned for gold. They still have gold up there. So we did that, and then he could write about that. And one of his teachers thought that he was making things up. I got called in when he was young. They said, "Oh, he really has a vivid memory. Are you sure he's okay? He said he went, to Spain this past summer." And I said, "Yeah, he did." This teacher didn't know us that well, and I said he did, and he was describing what he saw. So anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, was Conrad were you in predominantly white schools or multicultural school? What was your schooling like?
It's multicultural, definitely.
multicultural.
Yeah.
Long Beach Unified School District.
Okay.
I did not put him in Los Alamitos. That's where I went, and it was okay for me. But I said, no, I don't want my child to go through that. It's different, for males. And then again, he had those little problems being very active, and I didn't want him to be treated a certain way. So since I worked in Long Beach Unified, at the time, I knew the principals and I would pick the best schools. They allowed district employees to put their kid in whatever school they wanted to.
Oh,
So and Long Beach Unified is very multicultural. It's a beautiful melting pot. Long Beach Poly, I don't know if you're aware, that's where he went to high school,
mhm.
and they just have just about every culture on campus, and they're all celebrated. So that was a really good place for him to be.
That's so good. So good. And I love that he got to get just that in-person learning, hands-on learning, that education that now when you're looking back on the quality of education, what you had at home definitely was a gift to be able to have that to go alongside what you're learning at school. Because some kids, when you have to just imagine it, it's hard to imagine without being able to see some of those things up front and experience them. And I remember when my first year's teaching, I was in Linwood Unified School District, and my student, out of 100 kindergartners, we had one black kid, one white kid, and the rest were Latino. But when I taught fifth grade, my students had never been to the beach.
Hmm.
They had never been like outside of Linwood, really.
I believe it.
And I
I
took them
had
on a trip.
students like that.
I
Yeah.
took them to the Getty Museum, and I mean, the kids were just going across the tracks. So we were maybe 10 minutes away from the school, and they were just like, wow. And then as we were on the train going up the hill, one of the students was like, thank you so much, teacher, for bringing us here. But you just saw the kids' eyes widen, and they got to learn so much more. And so to be able to have that is priceless. Those are priceless moments, and to be able to do it with family. it makes it even better.
It's really sad. I experienced that being a teacher. Kids had never been to the beach, never been to Disneyland, just in their own neighborhood. The parents were working 2 and 3 jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't have time. And now they've cut out a lot of those programs.
Standardized.
So, yeah, standardized testing, reading and math, no field trips. So it's really important that parents do those things. And again, you don't have to, I know Disneyland is what, $200 a day per person or some ridiculous amount. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that, but you could take them to the beach and just go on a little nature walk somewhere, pick up the flowers, ask them the name of it, talk about it. Now you can just look on your phone and get the names. There's so much knowledge out there right at your fingertips. So learning experiences are really easy today. You don't have to be a teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, were you allowed as a kid to spend the night over family's house or friends' houses as a kid?
It didn't happen that often. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up, like in certain areas, like because of the problem is I'll get to know someone in the neighborhood and then they'll move. No, that was my problem for a while. So rarely, but yes, I did on occasion have that.
With who?
Corey, remember?
Corey. Okay, yes. So there was only one person that I trusted, and that was how I was raised. There was only one, and it was like my mother's best friend. She knew the family. She knew, which is, I'll get to that in a minute. So she let me spend the night over that girlfriend's house. They were friends from church. She knew who they were, but nobody else. And my mother was very, I guess, again, this is old school, just very protective, very concerned about, being molested or whatever. So she was on top of things. She, really, if there was any strictness, that's where it was. Oh no, you're not going over there. No, I don't know those people. That
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it's interesting, the one family that she let me spend the night over, this was one of the ladies that said, my mother was horrible. She beat me every day. And I'm like, oh my God, she seemed so nice, when I went over there. So you never know. You
Yeah.
really don't know what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah, and I was raised the same way. That's why I asked, because my grandmother didn't let me spend the night over anybody's house. And my best friend since third grade is from Trinidad. Her parents are from Trinidad.
Mm-hmm.
And so she would always have parties and stuff, but I always had to come home after the party. I'm coming home.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
mean, it was literally right around the corner. But
Mhm.
even then, my grandma's like, she can come spend the night over here, but you can't go spend
Yes.
the night over
Oh,
there.
yes. Yes. I had people over, but I couldn't go over there.
Yep. And then I remember in elementary school in sixth grade, we had a school field trip where we were supposed to go camping. To this day, I still haven't been camping before.
Oh.
But my grandma was like, absolutely not. And I was like, didn't my mom get to go on her camping trip? She said,
Mm,
absolutely not. And you're not
mm.
going either. And so I didn't
Wow.
get to go.
I
And
did let him go on the fifth grade camping trip because it's such a wonderful experience. And again, I knew who the teachers were, the administrators, and how everything was run.
yeah,
So, yeah, that
but I
was
think
safe.
it's so much better to be more protective than less protective because
Yes.
there are so many bad actors out there who will do bad things to kids,
Yes.
Yeah.
boys and girls, and we're hearing
Oh,
about it all the
yes.
time.
Hmm.
And I have been way more protective of my daughter than my son. I just didn't expect things to happen to him, and nothing has, as far as I know. But there are people that will still take advantage of boys and girls,
Oh,
and you do
yes.
have to be very protective.
You do.
Yeah,
Especially today.
yeah,
Although it's been going on forever, but it
yeah,
just seems to be more prevalent
It's being
today.
exposed
It's,
today.
yes.
Definitely a
Yes.
difference. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
yet
So,
the access is so much bigger. And
mhm.
so
Hmm.
even back in the days, you might have cousins that had magazines and stuff, but they might have had one and that they stole from somebody or whatever. Now you have all the porn is on the phone.
Right.
Everything
Yes.
is easily accessible. So,
Right.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Um, what advice would you have for parents that might be struggling with discipline today?
Conrad, do you want to answer that? Conrad was recently in a relationship and actually learned about the young lady had a daughter, She was 2.
Yeah,
When they broke up, she was 4. So he learned a lot about discipline and a little bit. So why don't you start?
well, I mean, I wasn't one for 24 hours a day, but from my understanding, she would give a verbal warning, and she would threaten like she called it a pow pow, I guess, like whatever it was. But I mean, the girl wouldn't understand. She was smart enough, and she'll have her tantrums. Kids have their tantrums. She had the time. Now she was going to a private school, but at the time, she had a daycare or worker or daycare
Provider.
daycare person that she would go to. It's a private house, and this lady wrote she at the time she only had one kid, and it would be her and my ex's daughter. And then it came down to it where I guess that kid moved on and got older, and it was just the daughter. So, like when she would be out in public, I mean, when we went to the LA County Fair, she was crying. She would call her, and then she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna call her. I'm gonna call. I think Miss Hazel's her name. Miss Hazel. I'm gonna call Miss Hazel like that." And then she acted up.
Miss Hazel
straightened
was
it up.
old school.
Yeah, old
Yeah,
school.
she didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, play.
So but she didn't spank her in front of me. So and she disciplined. How she disciplined.
She was a therapist too.
Yeah,
So she, used all of those therapy techniques. Yeah. So anyway, but so what advice would I give? I would say spend a lot of time with them, love them. They need to know that you love them and you want the best for them. Respect them. I didn't force Conrad into any career. I told him, follow your passion. We're there to support you. He didn't go the military route. Now that's when I actually put my foot down. I was pretty strict about that. He knew someone who was going to get him into the Air Force
Reserve.
Air Force Reserve, but he would have had to go through basic training and be in the military and give them back, I don't know, 10 years before he could work in the airlines. I said, no, there's another way to do this. And most people aren't doing the military route anymore. 50-50. Okay, 50-50. Yeah. But you can pay to do it. And I'll say we sacrificed and we paid for his lessons.
No.
Because this was on. Okay, yes, he did. He worked at Disneyland and paid for some lessons. Actually, okay, this is something that people might want to know. So the flight lessons are very expensive. And he can just go once a week to get his hours. So I would pay 1 week. His dad would pay 1 week. His grandfather would pay 1 week. And Conrad paid 1 week. And that added up, who knows, to $1,000, maybe over $1,000. But we shared it. We shared the responsibility and got him through flight school to the point where he was a flight instructor and then he started making money. So, family's important. And I'm sorry, my dogs are really barking right now. I have 2 big German Shepherds, and when other dogs are walking, they bark. So they should stop in a minute. Just really spend a lot of time with them, respect them, hear what they want to do with their lives. Let them talk. I've also noticed parents, they tell the child to shut up and they want them to do whatever they want to do. They're very controlling. I don't see a child as someone that I own. I see him as someone, God gave to me to raise and send him out into the world to do whatever he wants, whatever his calling was, his purpose in life was. It's not my purpose. I was told when I was young to be a doctor. Oh, you got to be a doctor. You're going to follow in your father's footsteps. But, and he even took me to the hospital. I saw an autopsy. I saw surgeries. I knew I didn't want to do that at a young age. I tried. I got all the way to sophomore year, bio major. And I really found out then it wasn't for me, because when I got organic chemistry classes and physics, they were not for me. I was more artistic. because my mom was taking me to ballets, and I was learning the piano and doing all of these artistic things. I found myself through that. I was not the science person, I was the artistic person. So find your child's let them find their passion and then nourish it. um, Conrad, I tried to put in piano lessons and dance and things, and it didn't work with him. He was more scientific, and now that's how he has to be that way with the plane, or it's going to crash.
Yeah. I love that. You said let kids find their passion. And
Yes.
and that's important because then if they are passionate about it, that's when they're going to put their all into it. Um
Yes.
in you all building you all's relationship, like how did you all get to this, to foster this relationship, or what repeatable things can parents do in order to build a strong relationship with their kids of any age, whether they're kids or adults?
Trust. I think trust is a big thing, and I believe that, I was younger, I didn't really listen, or maybe I didn't really take things seriously, well, because you're at that age in middle school, high school. But um, she was consistently saying a lot of the advice, and my mom has always been a big portion of like advice and a go-to. So then when I started following it, it became true, and I realized for myself. So there's like, we gotta trust someone and understanding, be able to be open and receptive. So that's, yeah.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah, we felt like he didn't trust us. Like we would give him advice, and then he'd still, and it's not anything serious. It was like, well, even with your career. I remember his dad works for American Airlines. He knew some of the managers in the flight portion of the company, and he came home and told Conrad, "Oh, they're going to be hiring soon, like 5 years or something. All these pilots are going to retire. Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be hired." But Conrad didn't listen. Conrad went and talked to somebody, one of his friends. His friend said, "Oh no, they're not hiring. You'll never get in there. You need to go over here. You need to do this." And there was that time that he would listen to other people, the kids, when we
Colleagues,
had,
equals. Yeah.
yeah, colleagues. And this is I just gave one example. It was relationship problem. I mean, and we'd tell him, and then he'd go out and find, "Oh wow, you were right," or he'd come back, "My frat brother said the same thing," or "Wow, mom, how'd you know that?" And we keep telling him, you know we have experience, we're older, and so maybe that's also something that young people raising kids should do. Have a mentor, go to an older person, a parent who's done it before. Nothing is new.
No.
You think that, kids think that they're doing something that has never been done before. It was being done decades ago.
Mhm.
And so there's always someone that's had that experience. I remember I took him to a baby shower. He was young when during those active years, and he stuck his finger in the cake, and I was mortified. I was ready to take him home. And the grandmother came over. She took me aside. She said, "Angela, I know what you're going through. Don't worry. It's okay." She said, "My son was the same way. They change as they get older." And I was so glad that someone, you're not alone. And so I would start turning down invitations. We weren't going places, but then I found out everybody was going through the same thing. So reach out to other parents, get advice. And if they're older and have been through it and have raised, kids that are are doing well. They don't have to be doing well, but you know what I mean. They're
Yeah.
not. Yeah, they're productive members of society.
Mhm.
Yeah, listen to them. Find out their secrets. We can all learn from each other.
I love
Iron
that.
sharpens iron.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
100%.
yes.
Now,
Mhm.
what was the impact of having the grandparents in your lives? Because I only had one grandparent when I was born. That was my grandmother, and she was my everything. But she also raised me, so my relationship with her was more like a mom than a grandmother. But what
Mhm.
was it like having your grandparents in your life?
I'm gonna let him answer
Oh, it
that.
was very good. Growing up, my grandmother was, before she got older, she was living with us. So, she was kind of, if I wanted to get something I really wanted that my parents said no, or I wanted to get away with something. She was like kind of the she was a good cop in the household, and the
Yeah.
parents would be. So I had that. Margaret was very my grandmother. You know, my mom's side, my mom's mom was very nice in that sense, and she would take my side sometimes, and then sometimes, you know, when my behavior was a certain way, you know, she would agree. But it was unique, and of course, my grandfather, watching him into his senior years, even when I was in the airlines, you know, he was still working very impressively well into his 80s. He worked for a pathologist for years and laboratories when my mom was young, and then he remarried a third time, a younger lady, and opened up a clinic in his 80s and was running like a laser spa, kind of a beauty clinic. And we'll see him sometimes I'll spend some time up. They lived out in Riverside. He always lived out like out in that area. So I'll visit him. He would come home with his lab coat on, and like sometimes visit him in his office. So it was very impressive to see someone working the longevity. I mean, he passed away at 95. He probably worked darn near to his 90s. So, but
Wow.
he was so busy, unfortunately, he always said one day, next time, because he was struggling. The
Well, you
business.
didn't tell him what to do, what to fly with you.
Yeah, well, I'm not there yet. That's my
Okay.
point. He was struggling with his business, so he never had the time. So I would always invite him up, take him on a flight, him and his wife, but he never did it. But after he passed away, I had a very special flight last year. I didn't even bid for it, but I had a flight going. It was a Miami, Holguin, Cuba. It was a turns. I land, come back, and didn't plan it that way. And this happens to be his birth city in Cuba. This is where he was from. So I felt like his spirit was with me, and I did probably one of the best landings. I
Wow.
just greased it. It was a beautiful day, beautiful in the whole Cuban countryside, and it was just, you know, it's like I took him home. I felt like, you know, in a way. So it was nice
Wow.
having that experience. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Joyce.
Yes, Joyce.
Joyce, okay. Tell about your dad's mom.
Joyce was great too. She'll come
You visited
visited
Trinidad.
Trinidad several years, and one time I had a little cousin that he was kind of closest to a brother I had, and he's an only child, and we're 4 years apart, so we're roughhousing it, and this is shoot in the 90s, and I pushed him into a river. Like in Trinidad, there's like a little creek, a small creek. I mean, like knee high or whatever, nothing crazy. But we're wrestling, pushed him into the water, and he got out crying, and he went up to my grandmother and talked, you know, and she was consoling him, and sure enough, Joyce said she wanted to talk to me, and I slammed the door, and I didn't want to talk because I knew I was going to get a whooping, and I kind of even like said no, I locked the door. She's like, open that door, and my cousin's name's Curry, and she's like, Curry, go outside and get the switch. There was like this plant, and literally like he got that switch, and I opened the door, and bottom line, she tore me up pretty bad, and then the funny thing of it is, my dad comes home because my dad was visiting family. He was there. Like there's a lot of extended cousins he had, so he was out all day fixing because he always had that mechanic fixing kind of skill. So he was fixing people's pumps and all this. So he came home and it was Curry, my cousin, had like one of these little Tonka trucks, and he just picked up the truck and threw it at me across the room. So and then his dad, Curry, my cousin's dad, came home and he found out that I pushed him in the river, so I got it from him. So after that, I couldn't sit down for a day, but I learned that, and I didn't act up again when I went to visit my cousins. So
Yep.
lesson learned.
Yes.
Yep.
So
And
that was his experience with his grandmother on that side
I
of the family.
love that. You know, I went to Cuba in 2017, right when Trump first took office, and he was threatening to close the border and end our ability to go. I booked my ticket 3 hours before he made that official announcement. And
Good.
so they said that if you had purchased any part of your ticket before he made the official announcement, you could still go. And if you hadn't, you couldn't. And none of my friends had purchased their ticket. So I ended up going by myself. Now, that was my first, but not my last international solo trip. And it was at times a little scary being out there by myself in Cuba because it's a dictatorship. You just don't know what to expect. And I had taken a tour. Well, I rented a car and drove around too. But
Wow.
I've not done that.
Yeah, and I usually don't. When I'm in foreign countries, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I had taken a taxi to my hotel, but then there was a rental car place in the parking lot where my hotel was. And I was like, let me mosey over here and see how much it costs to rent a car. So I rented the car. I had gone to this farm, and they were telling me that they were afraid of the police. Well, when they said that, then I became afraid of the police.
Mm-hmm.
But there was
Yes.
when one day I was driving down the street and I saw the police and I had my phone. I was trying to take a picture of him, and he turned around and I freaked out because I was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna see me driving with my phone up and take a
Mm.
picture of him. I'm gonna be in trouble." But
Yes.
it was okay. But I had such a beautiful time. The people were amazing.
Yes.
The fruit was so fresh.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I started this day today with the ultra processed foods, but in
Mm-hmm.
Cuba they were saying we don't use any chemicals on our food at all.
Yeah.
And the one guy I was talking to was saying his grandfather lived to be 94 years old because of that, because they had that fresh food.
Yes.
And you would see
Yes.
mangoes on the side of the road this big,
Yeah.
just and they grew everything at this farm. They had like the potatoes, they had goats and chickens and cows, and they had the mangoes and avocados, and just really all of the food that they could possibly grow, they grew right there. And
Yes.
it was just so good to be able to see that. So, hearing that was home for your father, your grandfather, is so amazing, um,
Yes.
for me to imagine.
And
Um,
in Cuba, the reason why they don't have processed foods is because of that embargo from the United
Yeah,
States.
everything's
So we
really
can't send all of our, bad foods,
yep,
ketchup, and all the horrible things. Everything they're eating is natural. And I would venture to bet if you were to test the kids, they would be very healthy and
mhm,
not have some of the problems that our kids have.
yep, and the obesity and all of the stuff that
Yeah,
we deal with here.
right, right.
Yep.
I don't see that there. Yeah.
Yeah, childhood diabetes is all the things that are because of
cancer.
the food that we're eating.
Cancer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
oh man, I love Trinidadian food. Um,
Too.
it's my favorite. Anytime I go, my best friend and her mom both live in Atlanta now. So anytime I go to Atlanta, I stay with them. And most of the time they'll cook for me.
Mhm.
And I appreciate it. But what is anything that you all are working on that people should be aware of, or any plans you all have upcoming?
Well, they have a cruise.
We're going to
Family,
Alaska. The family's going to go to Alaska for the first time,
What cruise
and
line?
Royal Caribbean.
Royal Caribbean. We went on this timeshare presentation, and they gave us a cruise for listening. We upgraded, and so it's a whole week, and we have a nice stateroom, so it should be nice. And we're going in May, um, but I'm just enjoying my retirement. I am writing. I have one book that has been out for years, and I'm determined to finish the second one. African American Heiress was the name of the first book, and it's about a young lady whose great grandfather was a gold miner here in California. So she's a third generation Californian, and it's fiction, but based on historical fact. So money was passed down, and then there's some love thrown in there and some suspense. So that was my first book. The second book's going to be about a Cuban young lady. The family asked me to write about Afro-Cubans and their experiences. Oh, did you hear that? See, now we talked about, yeah, we have a good relationship, but we could go head to head. He just said, yeah, when you finish it up. He's been on
So you
me.
need to finish it
You
up.
need to fit, yeah.
You
He
have
It's good.
to.
I read the first 7 pages of it, first 7 chapters. I was on a vacation and I was like, wow, this is really good. So you need to definitely,
Yes,
You
yeah.
gotta
yes.
finish it.
So and he's on me, just like I used to be on him to finish the book. So I will. And I'd like to work.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I definitely want to check out this book. And I love historical fiction. When I was teaching, I used to use historical fiction books and I would read them aloud to the kids when they come in from recess and lunch. I'm like, okay, sit down, calm down. One of my fifth graders, they come in all drenched in sweat. I'm
Yes,
like, sit
yes.
down. And I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to read aloud to you guys for 10 minutes before we get back into the rest of the lesson.
Yes.
Get people to
I
comment.
did the same thing. We have so much in common.
Mhm.
And I can, you said that, and I can smell the room when you, I know that after lunch, yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, I would put the lights out. I'd read, and they loved it. They
Loved
needed
it.
that transition period before they got
Yep.
back into learning.
And their reading scores went up because of that, because I would ask them questions and they loved it so much. They would go, uh-oh. I
Oh,
think I think Facebook just ended. No, it's okay.
yeah. Well, it's 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I didn't know that Facebook was gonna cut it at 8 hours, but I guess they just cut it on Facebook, but we're still live on YouTube. But thank you so much for this. It has been so helpful, and I'm so glad to have heard from both of you all from just another perspective. My goal with the whole Don't Screw Up Your Kids podcast is so that we can all learn from each other, some of our mistakes, some of our successes, and we can become better for the next generation. So thank you so much for spending the time to talk with me. And for sure, now that I know there's a book that needs to be finished, I'm gonna be checking in with you about it.
Okay. Good.
And I know
Accountability.
you are going to love Alaska. I haven't been on Royal. I love cruising. It was check the weather, but I went in June and it was like 70 something degrees the whole time.
Oh,
So I took
good.
this huge ski jacket thinking it was going to be cold. It wasn't.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I just needed a windbreaker because in some places it did sprinkle, but when you go to Glacier Bay and by the glaciers, it's freezing cold there. A
Oh,
lot of
okay.
people just had blankets on the top deck. I just went on my balcony and looked, and what they did is they pulled into the bay and they spinned around a few times so that you could see all of the glaciers from every angle, and I loved it.
Nice.
I went
Oh,
out on my balcony, took some pictures, and came back in, and came back out, took some pictures, and came back in.
hmm.
That was it.
Right.
It was freezing cold there, but the rest of the time when you get off the boat, it was warm and
Hmm.
it was
Good
amazing.
to know.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Thank you,
hope you all
Kalisha.
have a
And
great rest of your day. Yep.
thank
We
you.
will.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Yes,
inviting us.
absolutely.
We've
And how
never
do
been asked
Right.
oh
to,
thank you.
we've never been asked
Now
to,
how do people get
share.
your book?
Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon. Yes. African American Heiress is the name of the book.
Got it.
Yes.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much. Have a
Right.
great rest of your day. Thank you
You
both of
too.
you for making the time
Absolutely.
to come.
You too.
Yes.
Happy
All
MLK
right.
Day.
Definitely.
Thank you. Happy
Okay.
MLK
Right.
Day to you all. Whew, it's been an amazing day. I am super excited that you all shared the day with me. For those of you who came in and out, hopefully I can end the Facebook. But thank you all for spending a chunk of your day with me. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you to all of you who kept putting the comments in the chat. I'm so excited. 8 hours of parenting. I love it. I love it so much. Share this. I'm going to break up each hour into individual ones because if you send somebody an hour long, 8 hour long video, I'm sure they're not watching it. But maybe they'll watch the 1 hour segments. But the full 8 hours will still be on YouTube so that you can always find that. But thank you so much for spending a part of your day with me. Again, I'm Kalisha Washington. I'm your parenting BFF, and my goal is to help us live a good life. Make sure that our kids live happy, healthy, and whole lives. And that comes from us being the best parents we can be. I will see you all. Have a great rest of your day.